We've talked about building your brand before leadership. We've gone into the pros and cons of management. Now we're just going to get some really good stories. So we've got 3 stories, 30 minutes. Every promotional story is quite different. I think on the surface, promotional stories into management seem pretty straightforward. You're really good at your job, you got into management. But in reality, that's not the case at all. What I have found in this session alone is that there's like so many ways to get into this. And so what we wanted to do is we wanted to bring in 3 leaders from our community to tell their unique stories. So we're super interested to learn. We're going to hear from Scott, Quinn, and Kiana. So is everybody promoted up to speak? It looks like we are. Hey, Quinn. Hey, Kiana. Hey, Scott. Don't see your video just yet, but I'm going to pass it on to Kiana. I'm going to start with you. Name your role, the company. We'll go around the table and then we'll each tell our story. We have about, 10 minutes each.
Okay, perfect. Well, hi, everyone. I'm Kiana Aurelia. I am a senior manager of value consulting at DocuSign.
And hi, folks. Good morning. My name is Quinn Adler. I'm a solutions engineering manager at Eightfold, and I've been in the role about 18 months or so.
Hi, everyone. Scott Todd. I'm the Enterprise Financial Services Solution Consulting Manager at DocuSign, and I just finished my first quarter as a manager.
Congratulations. I want to definitely unpack that. Thanks. So we're getting tons of comments like what a rock star panel. The 3 of you are just excellent. I know you have a lot of fans in the audience. So Kiana, go ahead and take us through your journey. Just walk us through the process, share any insight that you would like the audience to take away from.
Perfect. Sounds good. All right. So I mentioned I'm a senior manager of value consulting. I'll go through a little bit of what that means. But just so you all know what to expect. So Scott and Quinn and I were prepping for this just to make sure that we weren't stepping on each other's toes of the content that we were sharing. So I'll give you a little rundown of what the theme is that each of us will share. So I'll start off with how I adapted over the last year to the manager role. And then Quinn will share some of the blind spots he learned from his transition. And then Scott will wrap us up with how to prepare for the transition if you're an IC right now. And I was wondering, if you feel comfortable sharing, this is to the audience, but I'd love to hear about where you all are in your leadership journey. So if you could just drop in the chat, whether you're an individual contributor or if you're a people leader. And I'm also curious, if you're a people leader, could you share how long you've been a manager for? Perfect. We've already got people lighting up the chat. Thank you. All right, so I mentioned I lead a team of value consultants. So before I get into my story, I'll just give you a little bit of background on what value consulting does. So my team has 3 strategic offerings we work with sales and customer success on. So we offer white spacing and account strategies, business cases, and value realization studies. And through these offerings, we partner with solution consultants to help customers identify and prioritize and improve on their business challenges. And our projects tend to appeal to customers, like project managers, all the way up to executives and decision makers. So we tend to see higher and faster win rates and bigger deal sizes and more retention when we're involved. So that's a little bit of background on our team. So my personal story at DocuSign was that I joined as an individual contributor about 4.5 years ago, and I was a recovering consultant from Deloitte. As our business grew and our team grew with it, I was promoted a few times. And the most recent promotion was about 1.5 years ago into managing the team that I had helped my then director build around me as peers. So I have 6 direct reports, all of whom I interviewed, but I wasn't their hiring manager at the time. And this year has really been a transformation, not only for the team and the quality and impact of the work we do, but also for me personally and growing into my leadership style and finding really what works. And I'd call it out, more importantly, identifying and pivoting from really what wasn't working for me. So I'll share some of those key learnings I've collected over the last year with you all. And I have to say before I do, a lot of what I've learned as a leader is from the people I manage. So I have some phenomenal natural leaders on the team who lead every day in the way that they're influencing customers, sales teams, and like even each other in our team. So I've really relied on learning from them and consistently asking and acting on feedback instead of just dishing it out as their manager. And I have to admit too, like in preparation for this event, I asked around to some of my team members on feedback from the last year to kind of collect ideas for this panel. So I'll share a variety of what I observed in my own growth, but then also how that transition into management has been perceived by the ICs on my team. Okay, so the first thing I adapted to as a manager in the last year is that there's a different and expanded scope of influence versus being an IC. And what I mean by that is that I'm responsible for coaching, like not only coaching and guiding my team internally, but then also advocating for them and steering them to collaborate with cross-functional teams. And a lot of the work my team does influences and then is influenced by initiatives outside of our organization. So I have to stay well connected with cross-functional leaders to make sure that we're, working together rather than in silos on projects. And when I'm able to help support the people on my team working cross-functionally too, I'm also being very mindful that this is helping them grow their professional network to help grow their careers. So I'll give you an example in the last year. About last year, around Thanksgiving timeframe, I was meeting with a product executive, and he was really, really passionate about improving our sustainability strategy at the company. So I brought in someone on my team who had already shown deep interest and expertise in the sustainability messaging to our customers. And so from there, we built a sustainability task force. And that person on my team that I pulled in still leads it to this day. We actually had a call yesterday about it. And she gets to collaborate with leaders in product and legal, which is, it's really special because usually we're in the world of, pre-sales and sales and customer success. And so I'll share one of the reasons I was so prepared for that expanded scope of influence was through my involvement on our WISE, that's Women in Solution Excellence ERG, like shout out to DocuSign WISE. This year, I'm the chair of the employee resource group. And that means I'm constantly working cross-functionally and fostering relationships with colleagues outside of value, which has given me, a really strong foundation to take on the increased expectations of a manager. Okay, the second thing I learned was how to adapt the style that I work to the people on my team. So as an IC, I was able to apply my personal working style to how I worked with my AEs and projects teams. But it was back when I was an IC, it was all about how to optimize my time and deliver on my personal results. But now as a manager, it's not about my preferences on how to work. It's more about what works best to help my team grow in their skill sets and drive better outcomes on projects and set them up for success in really their careers beyond, when I'm going to be their manager. And so that was actually a really surprisingly hard transition for me to make. At first, I was actually I was putting all my effort into not micromanaging. I was trying to emulate basically what I loved in prior managers who gave me full autonomy. But that was the style that really worked well for me. And what happened when I applied that to managing my team was that I unintentionally leaned out too much to where the team had feedback that they needed more direct support on deal work. And so now I'm kind of adjusting the balance, and it is a balance because I still can't micromanage and I can't, lean out too hard. But now I'm working alongside my team, at least on select customers, to co-create with them and then learn from them while I'm coaching. So overall, what I learned from that is to just be in tune with each person's motivations and needs and working styles, since I'm trying to maximize their work instead of just my own. Okay, and then the third thing I adapted to, and then I'll wrap it up, over the last year is how to be clear in my communication, particularly when I'm coaching. So this is something that some people on my team gave me feedback on when I was prepping for this panel, that over the last year, I've gotten a lot better at giving more pointed feedback and direction. And someone mentioned that, recently when they asked for feedback around how to ensure that they're investing in the right things for their career trajectory, I gave them clear and categorical focus areas based on their strengths. And I don't think that I was doing that as well when I first started, as I am now. and I still have a lot to improve on. But what's been really tricky, I found, to do that is that, we're in an ever-changing environment. And so our team's scope and areas of influence is super wide. Like we support the entire enterprise sales organization and customer success, and the list goes on. And so we're in a constant state of change, which is great because our team is so adaptable. But what I've found is that it makes it even that more important and difficult to bring that like grounding center to what people are working on. So I've put a lot of effort into having clear conversations about their strengths and growth opportunities, both on projects, but also for career growth. And how I do that is I tend to center our feedback conversations around only a few central themes. And then I'll give them specific and timely examples of where they've done that well and where they can grow. And then I'll open it up to a mutual brainstorm around what tactical next steps make sense to pivot in the direction we agree we want to go in. And so that's really helped in developing my coaching style. So those are the 3 ways I've adapted to the role. I covered expanding my scope of influence, adapting the style I work with people on my team, and then being clear in communications, particularly for coaching. So next I'll pass it on to Quinn, and he's going to share some of the blind spots he learned from in his transition.
Awesome. Thank you, Kiana. Appreciate that. Hi, folks. My name is Quinn. I'm a solutions consulting manager over at Eightfold. I've been here for about 4.5 years, making me our longest standing tenured solution consultant, but I've been in management for about 18 months or so now. And Eightfold, we help our organizations, our customers understand and engage with the talent all around you, inside and outside your organization, so that you can match people and skills to real work in real time to drive your business outcomes, all artificial intelligence from the ground up. Now, I wanted to break my session here into 3 different pieces here. 1, creating your brand. 2, removing oneself from the day-to-day sales process to focus on managerial things. And then lastly, all the different things that Kiana spoke on a little bit, but skills that managers need to be great at that ICs just don't really know about. So on the first piece, creating your brand, what's it like to work for and with you? And what I think about here is that people are always watching, and even when you're a brand new individual contributor, you are naturally taking things from your leaders, things you like, things you don't like. Like, oh, I would love to, if I were a leader someday, to do one of this, or like, I really do not like when my manager does that. So you're naturally picking and choosing and creating your own brand for what you want a manager to be, as you just simply engage and explore and learn as an individual. And what I realized too is that, and this sounds silly in hindsight, but so many different managerial or leadership opportunities help you create who you are as an individual, even from your childhood. Like for me personally, I was the marching band president in high school and college, and I didn't even realize until now there's so many overlapping skill sets between leading a band and leading a team of solution consultants, trying to pick the right music that people are going to like, picking the things that don't piss the flutes off, but the trumpets like too. And it's always there's that aspect of things to always being the front and center of attention, which I'll talk about in a little bit. That's different than being the manager, of course, of a technical team. But those kinds of examples too of, jumping in and asking for, getting voted on to be that president and say, like, here's what I'm going to do for you. Here's what I promise you as an individual who's going to lead you. Those are things that you start to think through and say, like, yeah, I'm going to do things 1, 2, and 3, because that's what the overall group needs from me. Additionally, I also used to teach a lot of younger martial arts classes when I was a kid too. And those kids are extremely impressionable, and they will take the tiniest little things that you do and emulate them. So again, it sounds silly, but the leadership opportunities that you had when you were a child or when you're a young adult, that really guides you towards who you are as a leader when you're in the occupational space like we are here. And so, what's it like to work for and with me? It should never be a surprise to somebody on your team what your expectations are, nor what your goals are for them. right? There should never be any guesswork there. It should be extremely obvious to your team, what your expectations are. Your team calls should start the same. They should end the same. I'm a personal believer that one-on-ones are mandatory. They're gospel. They should never move them in turn of a revenue generating opportunity call. And so just understanding some of those things and so your team knows, oh, this is what it's like to work with Quinn. This is like what it's like to work with Kiana or Scott, and having that be extremely transparent to them. That's one thing that I took for granted, because you work with good leaders and you just think that's obvious, that's in their blood. But it's not. It takes work. It takes effort to get there, to build your brand. And it's very different being a manager and building your brand that way versus being an IC, which leads me into my second point, right? Slowly removing yourself from the day-to-day sales motions to be able to work a bit more strategically and high level. When I joined Eightfold, we were about a 50-person organization, right? I was the third SE. And at this point in time now, I'm the longest tenured SE here. When you're building your brand there, it's all around the best demos you can give and how many customers can you close and the revenue that you generate. And that's all great. That's all fine and good. That really is being in the spotlight from that marching band analogy that I gave, right? You are front and center, and the executives say, I want so-and-so on the deal because they can do it. But as you grow and move into management, it's so easy for regional vice presidents and AEs saying, I want so-and-so on my deal still because I know they can do it. And early in my journey, it was very difficult for me to say no, because I think as SEs, we are people and we want to help people out, and we don't want to say no. But you are doing yourself a disservice if you keep jumping into those day-to-day sales motions. And every company is different. Some companies really lean into the player coach mentality. Others have a bit more of a player and a coach side of things. But I found for myself, I was really ignoring my larger managerial duties when I was just working on deals because higher up said, I want Quinn doing them. And so for me, even over the past, I'd say 6 months or so, I've been making a conscious effort to say, thank you for thinking of me, but my team member A or B can accomplish this instead. And they are okay with it, right? They trust you. They go to you first because they know that you can deliver, but other members of your team can definitely do so as well. And so once you start to remove yourself from discovery calls or demos, and obviously when they're very strategic, maybe a board member introduced you to the customer, sure, you're on for oversight. But for the overall standard demos and discoveries, those are things your ICs can handle. That's why they're on your team. That's why you pay them. That's their job. And that allows you to focus on things, the skill sets that are not normally part of your day-to-day that ICs don't even know about. Which brings me back to my last point here. Seems obvious in hindsight, and we all know it, but there's different skill sets that managers have than ICs have. Very few people can be complete A+ player ICs and managers. And I wasn't aware of a lot of these things. You go in thinking, oh, I've done the IC job for 4+ years and I'm really good at it. I can be a manager. I can do that. I can do one thing. I can do the other thing too. And there are so many different avenues or different situations that have come up that have completely blindsided me just because of lack of experience and maybe a little bit of hubris on the side too. But things when it comes to, deal politics and equity, right? You want to make sure everyone on your team is happy, just like the piccolos and the trumpets and the tubas, that all, you want to make sure that everyone has an equal chance to make a difference, to make money, to get their logos tied to them. And that's not something you think about as an IC because you are solely focused around yourself and making the most money and the most logos and customers for yourself too. So just simple deal equity and sometimes politics there, where the company is located, how many strategic deals have I given to, this person versus that person, something that I transparently didn't even think about. Additionally, promotions and career conversations, right? When you're an individual contributor, you're purely looking at how do I get promoted? What do I need to do to get to the next level? Whereas when you're a manager, understanding what your team's blind spots might be, what their areas of improvements are, and what their strengths are, what can they do, and lean on those strengths to become the best and most unique IC they can be if that's what they want to do. understanding what their goals are. They might want to pivot in their career. They might want to move into management or team leads at some point, but having those conversations around what they want to do in their career and active listening, something that I didn't really think about, but in hindsight, that's so freaking obvious. But when you're not in the seat, you just don't know any better. And then lastly, I'll say here is riffs, right? This is something that really you don't think about when you move into management. Obviously, it's like the black cloud over your shoulder, and you know it'll happen at some point. For me, it happened for us earlier a couple calendar quarters ago, and it's something that you can never prepare for. It's something that you become so close with these individuals, and it's very difficult to separate emotion from business outcomes. And I think for me, it was something that I really struggled with, because as an IC, again, that's not something that you're even close to thinking through. It's just hoping. It's not me. There's no strategy tied to that. But when you're a part of that from the manager side of things, I talk with a lot of my manager coaches and mentors, and they said, like, the fact that you feel pretty shitty about this is a good thing, right? If you were able to be a robot and to say like, yep, and just, knock them down, that'd be a bit disconcerting. And so just, going through it once, it's going to happen again. We all know that. Tears were shed in the process, but some of the things that you don't think about when you move into management, there's a lot of great things there too. There's a lot of things that aren't so good, but that's the plus and minuses with every job. And so I'll just close up here and hand things over to Scott. But for me, the three blind spots that that I did not think about moving into it was, you're always creating your brand. Every meeting you jump on, every past experience that you had as well as a leader is always honing who you are and what your brand is as an individual. Again, slowly removing yourself from the day-to-day of sales can really allow you to be a bit more of a strategic thinker and focus more on the managerial side of things, on the management side of the house. And then lastly, so many different things to think about and skill sets that managers need that ICs it's not even in their rearview mirror. It's not even in their head. And in my example, I talked about deal politics and equity, promotions, career conversations, and riffs as well. All things that, 18 months in the job, I'm still very new and learning, but now my eyes are wide open. So now I'm going to hand things over to Scott to talk through how to prepare for this transition from IC into management.
Thank you, Quinn. So hi again, everyone. Scott Todd, manager for the enterprise financial services solution consulting team at DocuSign. I lead a team of 8 incredible solution consultants. Our team's job is to help the largest U.S. financial institutions shape their technical strategies around their agreement processes, leveraging the entire DocuSign agreement platform, e-signature, and beyond. So as mentioned, my theme, being the newest manager to this panel, is really a quick overview of the journey, what the interview process was like, and kind of my immediate takeaways from my first 3 months in the role. Leading up to this, I didn't think it would be possible for me to talk for 10 straight minutes about this, but now it will be an absolute miracle if I can get through the key points. So if any of this resonates with any of you, feel free to find me on LinkedIn and continue the conversation. But just starting out with the high level journey, as we all know, there's many paths to get into pre-sales. Mine was probably as cookie cutter as it gets. I studied computer information systems. I went into implementation consulting, transitioned into pre-sales, and now I'm in pre-sales leadership. But I want to talk about some things as part, some key points in that journey that are worth calling out. So if you go back to when I was an implementation consultant at Oracle, the most valuable thing I ever did in my career was I sat down and I defined what I call my guiding principles. So my guiding principles are to grow knowledge base, advise customers, and to enable teammates. Pretty straightforward, pretty simple in theory. And we can all see how I naturally ended up in pre-sales. But I bring that up because that has been the North Star for me throughout my entire career. And if you think about those, my career has kind of progressed from one principle to the next. So if you think about being new in a role or new in your career, you're learning a lot, you're growing your knowledge base, you take that information, you bring it to customers, you're a trusted advisor, you have those experiences, and then you take that experience and you give it back to your team and help them do the same. So my career's followed a similar trajectory. So fast forwarding into being a solution consultant at DocuSign, really kind of the first piece of advice I would give to everyone is goal setting is so important. Take advantage of it. So document, communicate, and track your goals. Take advantage of mid-year reviews. Take advantage of end-of-year reviews. Set up check-ins with your leadership. Put in writing what you'd like to do. That was a huge game changer for me. I was very lucky to have leadership that took those goals, gave me opportunities based on those goals, and even challenged me to have more and more aggressive goals. Going from that, the next kind of piece of advice I would give is take advantage of programs, informal and formal. So starting with informal programs, something that I did within my first 6 months at DocuSign. At the time, we were hiring a lot of SCs, and I noticed that there were some new SEs that were struggling with some more basic concepts, but were afraid to bring those questions to their leadership because, the imposter syndrome that we all know. So I, without permission, created a new crew call that eventually grew from, I think, 5 to 25 SEs, where it became a roundtable where new SEs could come in, ask what some might call stupid questions. And that was something I did early to kind of establish myself as a go-to resource and a leader on the team. From there, you could also mentor new hires. If you have someone coming in that's new to the organization or new to the team, you can take them under your wing, take the lead on their onboarding, take that off your manager's plate potentially. And then create a project or create a program. If you're a rock star IC and you're thinking about pursuing leadership, package what you're really good at. Maybe you have a really good presentation. Maybe you have a really great talk track around a demo. Package that up, share it with your team, share it with the organization, get your name out there. So all of these kind of informal programs, whether it's creating a call, mentoring new hires, enabling the larger organization, it's a resume builder internally. It strengthens your skill set, and then it validates that leadership is something worth pursuing. So transitioning into formal programs, many companies have various leadership programs. I was fortunate enough to go through our University of Washington sales leadership program. I was one of 2 SEs in a cohort. It's a collection of folks from renewal management, AEs, success, pre-sales, where it was basically kind of a week-long crash course, MBA crash course with DocuSign specific examples where we had to work together and work through different things. I went through a pre-sales specific Padawan, what we call a Padawan program for those Star Wars fans out there, where I was challenged by someone in SE leadership to take on different tasks, try different things. One of the best challenges that I would challenge everyone on the call to go through is he said, if you woke up tomorrow morning and, a magic wand was waved and you took over a team, you're the manager, what do you do? What's your reaction? How do you go about your day? How do you go about your week? How do you go about your month? Document that. Write down what you need to learn. Write down who you need to talk to. It's a great way to learn very fast where your blind spots might be, where your strengths might be, who you might need to talk to. And that transitioned, or I should say, the last point with a formal program is I was also lucky enough that my leadership developed a team lead role. So similar across different teams, similar across different companies. I took on what I'll call a part 1 and part 2. So part 1 of being a team lead was I was basically an extension of my manager. So I interviewed for this role. There were other people on the team that went for it. That was a great exercise in preparing for leadership. And once I was in the team lead role, I was a liaison with sales. I took a bigger role with mentoring and coaching the team. And I also got more involved in sales strategy. The part 2, which ended up being the most challenging part of my career to date, was when my manager moved on. We didn't fill the manager role. And all of a sudden, as a team lead, I was an IC and had to take on take on the managerial tasks that were where a void was left on our team. And I say that was the most challenging because Quinn mentioned being a player coach. I was on, some very strategic enterprise financial services accounts with a lot of eyeballs on them, a lot of hours going into strategy, customer presentations. But then I was also, taking on more of a manager role with the team. So every time I was with the team, I was, taking time away from my accounts. All the time I spent with my accounts, I was away from the team, and it was really hard to balance that. So eventually there's a fork in the road. We open the manager position, and you might be thinking to yourself, I did all those informal activities. I did all of those formal activities. I was a team lead. They just gave it to you, right? No. The reality is the world we're in today. I'm not the only one doing these things. About a dozen people went for that role. Some of the best SEs at DocuSign, some of the very best top performers that I have so much respect for, and it was competitive. I really had to go all out to get it. So with the interview specifically, everyone will have some type of 30, 60, 90, and having kind of a boilerplate 30, 60, 90 isn't going to be enough. Not today. There's just not enough roles opening. You really have to cut through that and figure out what separates you from the others. So I was lucky enough to be on the team that I was going for the manager role of. So rather than doing a 30, 60, 90, I did a deep dive on our business, how we impacted the business. And I actually did a performance review on every single person on the team and came up with a personalized plan. And before the interview, since I was the team lead, I put that plan in place. So in the interview process, I could say, this is what I'm already doing to push the business forward. So if you're going for a manager role on the team you're on, I highly recommend doing that. If you're going for an internal manager role on a different team, do the same exercise with your team. Think about your teammates, folks on the team, and try to determine how you would help them be better at their job and bring that in. So just some final points here. The one other thing in part of the interview is, if you're an IC, think about an enterprise deal. You're getting finance involved, procurement, lines of business. You're getting all of their buy-in. In an interview, you're doing the same thing. It's great to network with pre-sales leadership, but you also think about your sales partners, your customer success partners. Get involved with them, get their endorsements. That will help you. So final takeaways here, just kind of three main pieces of advice. Start now. Set goals, communicate your goals. There's no perfect time to start. 2, take advantage of programs, informal or formal. And 3, get endorsements from sales leaders and your other partner orgs. So the miracle didn't happen. I think I went over a minute, but thank you, everyone.
Thank you so much, everybody. Thank you, Scott. Really appreciate it.